Lived Experience in Social Justice Advocacy is a three-part series: My Story, How I Work to Change a Law, and how you, as social workers, can also change a law. Today we will be covering lived experience in social justice advocacy as social workers, how to advocate for, and sometimes against, policies. Thank you for joining us today as we cover lived experience and social justice advocacy as social workers, how to advocate for or against policies. Alan Barsky is a professor at Florida Atlantic University. He's a social work professor, and he said, one of the primary factors distinguishing social work from psychology, psychiatry, and the other mental health professions is its commitment to social justice. So we know, according to the National Association of Social Work, the social work profession was founded in social change. Throughout the profession's history, social workers have sought to ensure that all people have equal access to the resources and opportunities that allow them to meet their basic needs. What we know in the ethical standards, the Code of Ethics, in Section 6.04, is that social workers have a commitment to social and political action. The Texas legislature meets in regular session for about 5 months every other year. So for example, the 88th legislative session began in 2023, and the 89th legislative session will begin in 2025. Regular sessions begin at noon on the second Tuesday in January of odd-numbered years. They last no more than 140 days, ending during the last week of May or the first week of June. The governor may call special sessions, and those special sessions can last up to 30 days. When the special sessions occur, the governor will choose the topics that will be discussed. Once those 30 days are over, the governor can call another special session that will last another 30 days. So when we're talking about sessions, it's called a regular session, the first special session, second special session, third, and so on. Between sessions is known as the interim, and during the interim, committees will meet and discuss what's called interim charges. The Texas legislature is made up of two chambers, the House and the Senate. The Senate has 31 senators who serve a 4-year term. The House has 150 representatives who serve a 2-year term. It is important to understand the culture of each chamber. Senators represent larger districts, have more constituents, while representatives have smaller districts. The Senate typically has legislators that have more extensive political backgrounds. Oftentimes, a senator will first be a representative. Due to the 2-year term in the House of Representatives, there is a higher turnover rate. It is considered more volatile or fast-paced. In contrast, the Senate is viewed as having a more polite decorum. Look at the pictures. In the House, legislators have to walk to the back of the floor and wait to speak at what's called the back microphone. In contrast, senators have their own microphones at their desks. The Big Three is known as the governor, the lieutenant governor, and the Speaker of the House. The Texas governor is elected by popular vote for a 4-year term, and similarly, the lieutenant governor is elected by popular vote for a 4-year term. The lieutenant governor presides over the Senate. The Speaker of the House is a little bit different. The Speaker of the House oversees the House of Representatives. The public has no input into who resides over the House. Fellow House members choose the Speaker. So many times in Texas, you will see the governor and the lieutenant governor campaigning together. But because the speaker is chosen by their peers, you will see a more centrist or moderate person. They can appear to be more bipartisan. They need both parties to get their position. The speaker is usually a well-seasoned, experienced legislator. The main job of a legislator is to represent their constituents. That is you, someone who lives in their district, and your voice matters. Legislators pay careful attention to their constituents. Theoretically, you are the person that voted them into office. Even if you did not vote for them, a legislator still represents you and your interest. So legislators file bills based on their experiences, expertise, or constituents' desires. They will also serve on committees that meet during the session and in the interim, as we discussed earlier. It's also important to note that there are capital offices in Austin and also district offices where they live. It is imperative that you, as an advocate, build relationships with staff, both in Austin and in the district. During this session, legislators get extremely busy, and it's very difficult for them to meet with you. But if you have built a relationship with staff, it is much easier to communicate with their office. Both chambers work on committees. At the beginning of the session, the Lieutenant Governor and the Speaker of the House select committee members and the chairs of those committees. The chairs of committees are extremely important because they decide which bills will be heard in their committees. Committee members serve 2-year terms, and they meet in session and in the interim. It's important to note that there are no bills being voted on during the interim, but they hear testimony and other information. Common committees that affect social work are in the House, Human Services, Public Education, Higher Education, Public Health, and Insurance. In the Senate, Health and Human Services, Education, and Commerce. Here is a brief overview of how a bill becomes a law. Notice along the process the many different ways that a bill can die. A bill that is filed in the House is known as a House bill, and it starts with HB. A bill that is filed in the Senate is a Senate bill and begins with SB. Once a bill has been filed, a bill is referred to a committee based on the topic. And once assigned to that committee, it needs a hearing. Most bills will not receive a hearing, and it will die at this step. If it gets a hearing, it must be voted out favorably. Many bills also die here. They may get a hearing, but then it isn't called up for a vote. Once out of the committee, those bills have to be sent to the Calendars Committee in the House or the Intent Calendar in the Senate. These are the committees that decide which bills will be debated and voted in the chamber. As you can imagine, this is also another way that that bill can die, is if it dies in the Calendars Committee. So during the House or Senate debate, bills change due to amendments. This can happen for several reasons. Maybe the author wanted to change the bill but didn't have time in a committee process. Maybe another legislator doesn't really like the bill and wants to add some amendments to change the intent of the bill. What you will see is closer to the end of the session, legislators will try to add amendments onto bills because their bills did not make it out of committee. So get active. Texas Legislature Online is one of the best resources for legislative advocacy. Become very familiar with this website. You can pull up a bill, you can search for a topic, you can find out historical data, you can go back all the way to 2007, 2005, and watch the first time I testified on a bill way back then. There's a wonderful archive section. If you do not know who represents you, there's a great website called Who Represents Me. What you do is you just click on that link and you go to it to enter in your address. Once you enter in your address, every elected official in your area will pull up. There will be both federal and state. Just take note of who your state representative and senator are in order to work at the state level in Texas. Connect with NASW Texas. They, each year, each session, have what's called a Social Work Advocacy Week. They also have virtual events, in-person events, and calls to action throughout the session. I would be amiss if I didn't say vote, vote, vote. Know about the issues, study your legislators before voting. A really good tip is also to follow NASW_TX on Twitter. Just by following Twitter, you will learn a tremendous amount because Twitter is used by legislators, advocates, staffers, and government agencies to discuss legislative action. Thank you for the opportunity for a glimpse into legislative advocacy. This is a lot of information all at once. My advice is to find a bill that you're interested in and watch it move through the process through Texas Legislature online. When you see that it comes up for a committee hearing, drive to Austin, testify in that committee in support or against it, and share the work you're doing with your friends and your family. When I started, I bought that Lobbying 101 book and headed to Austin, and it was through trial and error that I understood more of the process. Today, I'm working toward a master's in social work to work on human trafficking legislation. If you are interested, connect with me on Facebook and Twitter, and always remember that we are much stronger together.